it occurred to me that out of people who have written books on Krishnamurti, they've written on Krishnamurti's life, they've written on parts of his teachings and all that. But I don't recall anybody having written a book to do with Krishnamurti and the workplace. We can be in conversation with you about your very recent book called The Enlightened Manager, which is so interesting in very, very different ways. It's interesting. Many people have had successful lives. They make a lot of money and they become, good industrialists or serial entrepreneur. That's a term I learned actually now. And then with Vishwanath, actually, then all of a sudden you find there is a detour into Krishnamurti. So it sounded fascinating. So what is it that happened that drove you to this? This was the basic purpose of this session. Then, I think about Vishwanathji, I think most of you would have been read a little bit about, the introduction, being the owner of a company called IMI Mobile. Ultimately said that he disposed of at a particular point of time, to a point where I think his whole life interest has shifted to Krishnamurti. So that was very radical sort of transformation, I think, in a way. You get very few people who do that, try to bring it all together, not keep them separate, living separate and this separate. So I found that fascinating. But the key thing, that, I was talking to you earlier about today, it's one thing to be inspired by somebody, but it's another thing to be inspired to an extent where you write a book. Share a little bit about how this thing actually came about.
So I must thank all of you, sir, for choosing to be here. And I must thank Kamal Thakkar for organizing this event. First of all, I should tell you that there's something called invocation. I have found my own way of invoking Krishnamurti by saying, since I'm a trustee of the foundation, that we are not supposed to be interpreters or propagandists. This book is not written with that intention. Nor this session is meant for that. I'm not doing any interpretation. It's only by understanding I'm sharing. It is not the understanding. You can go and get yourself by your own understanding. This is in due respect to Krishnaji's intent. At the same time, you are asking a question, why he wrote this book? Is to share Krishnaji's teachings, a perspective of life, to share the fascination of life with others. That's the purpose of writing this book. After getting exposed to Krishnaji, I felt that my only mission should be only to do anything around him, his work. Because there is one concern. The concern is that Krishnaji should not be lost to the world. He himself, there is a famous quote of Krishnaji, anonymity is greatness. He never claimed anything for himself. But in the process, there's a danger, I feel. So my concern is to see that he is not lost to the world. Even though I am not a speaker, but I am an accidental speaker. The title is a very dangerous title. I am straying into dangerous territory by calling it Enlightened Manager. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment means tolerant of critical views, well-informed, factual, and all that. I will share my screen. I put together some clips of sports which I can relate, where I will present the perspective I gained from Krishnaji's teaching. I will share the screen now. This book is about inner dimension of life, the psychological structure of human mind, which is important to understand because it is the mind that is managing. So that needs the closest examination. That closest examination is possible through Krishnaji's lens. I have dedicated this book to nobody, dedicated to this book only to written here, there are no expectations and preconceptions. And to those who happen to read with expectation preconception, but are ready to examine their own expectation preconceptions. That says the tone of the book. Now I will take you through the 2 video clips of sports events. This clip is not covered in my book because by the time this happened, my book had gone to the publishers. This is the test match of which India played in England last year, where Siraj Mohammed dropped a catch by being unaware of boundary line. He crossed the boundary line and England came very close to target of 374. They came to 367. Harry Brooks scored a century where he was dropped by Siraj Mohammed. I'll just show that clip.
Siraj is hit the rope. He just come back on the field. Took the catch. And unaware of how close he was to the boundary. Could have been out. Ends up being 6.
A big error from Siraj. Good bouncer from Prasid Krishna. Height was good. Just above the shoulder. And here, Siraj just coming back, takes the catch comfortably, but wasn't really aware of what was the distance between the boundary rope and himself. And in that process, just touching the boundary rope once he completes the catch and then
Okay, I'll now take you through, sir. What I would like to say here, my perspective is that the commentator also saying he is not aware. Siraj Muhammad was not aware. Awareness exists in the moment only. You may be aware for many years, but if you are to be aware on that moment, otherwise you are not aware. But here, Siraj Muhammad was not aware. Was he not aware? He was aware the ball was coming to him. He took the catch, but he was fragmentally aware. He was not aware of the boundary line. So the fragmentary awareness led to the mediocrity. This is the one perspective. There's one more slide of Roger Federer shot. This is in US Open 2009 US Open semi-final against Djokovic. This match. Let me play this video. This particular shot, Federer had called the greatest shot he has ever played in his life. This I was not aware that he had called it, but I call it a most compassionate shot. Why is it called compassion? Is compassionate shot. The compassion cannot hurt anybody, nor it gets hurt. Meaning here, the opponent cannot feel hurt. If he feels hurt, there's something wrong with him, I will say. Opponent has to simply surrender the point with a great delight, because he was the cause of this shot. He was blessed, I can say. This particular shot, whether Federer was playing, he was not looking at the net or the opponent. At the moment, he was the bat, he was the racket, he was the ball, he was the court, he is everything. He is able to, but he could see through the mind's eye. Mind's eye, I am told, is more powerful than your physical eye. So he played the shot. He is not thinking of any competition, comparison at that moment. He is staying beyond comparison and competition. So that is the greatness of the shot. To communicate Krishnamurti is not simple. To communicate life itself is not simple. That is a 8 minutes clip. Management is not a noun. It is a verb in the active present. Your life itself is that is a very essence of life. It is not linear. It's non-linear. This is non-technical, non-linear. Management is non-technical, non-linear. There is no any fixed formulas for this. There are 2 more clips here. This is, if you can't manage yourself, how can you manage others? That is what the line says. You see, normally one get angry. Anger is a normal phenomenon of human minds. You are the anger itself. You are not different, separate from anger. Your mind is angry, so you can't do anything about it. That itself will cause some effect on the animal. You can't manage. Management is about managing people. You can't manage people unless you know how to manage yourself. The one last clip is there. See, there is a word I coined called coffee darshan. I am not talking of darshan of going to tirthayatras. I am not questioning that. Darshan of your own internal fallacies, internal sufferings is important. So coffee darshan, also you open out yourself. Is a pilgrimage of inquiry. Pilgrimage of inquiry inward. Pilgrimage of inquiry from which there will be no return. No return to the earlier state. Now we can, I'll stop sharing the screen.
Yes, Vishwanath. Yes, that was good, Vishwanath. I wanted to ask now, coming to the book, the format is very interesting because, I was reading the book. I also found a very interesting character, I could put that in inverted commas, which is friend on the bench, which is so beautiful. I found that because then, of course, I could understand. It's a very, very different approach to a sort of a management book, the story type telling or the format. How does that work? Who is Panna and who is GS?
It is not GS, it's GP.
GP, sorry, GP.
GP can be better appreciated by Telugu fellow.
Okay.
The narration style, I wanted to write English by an Englishman. That's why I supplied all the material and got it written by an Englishman. The structure there in the book, there are 2 things. One is the narration, structure of narration. The second thing is the content schema. Schema means content flow. Content flow is completely mine. Narration structure is suggested by Harry. He suggested that let us do conversational style, a road trip Road trip is modeled after Zen and art of motorcycle maintenance. There is a Panna character, mysteriously comes and talks to you. That is from Don Camillo Pepone. There is a book, there is a short story writer in Italy called Giovanni Gaureschi. He had written a Don Camillo Pepone where the crucifix talks back to the priest. We use that example and created a Panna. And friend on the bench, because Krishnamurti name I didn't put deliberately. If I put everywhere Krishnamurti name, people will immediately come, why not this, why not that? Why only Krishnamurti? Krishnaji himself said, let us talk like two friends walking in a park, sitting on a bench, he said. So I call it friend on the bench.
Just coming, Vishwanath, to the content of the discussions between the two gentlemen in the principal characters in the book, actually, GP and Panna. Is it about, basically, they're talking about workplace situations? Is it? What is the conversation that goes on?
It's all about work only. It's all life and work. There's also a chapter called work-life balance. I call it Kafi Darshan, a pause in the day. Pause is very important. But many businessmen think pausing for a day, pausing in a day, it means unproductive time. But that is the most productive time of the day, if you ask me. It's not a prescription, it is a natural order. Unless you're doing well in your health, you can't do well with the family. If you are not doing well with your family, you can't do well in your work also. This is a natural order, not my order. But the quote which I like for a corporate world or any social setting for that matter is very, very valuable is, one may talk endlessly, piling words upon words. Out of all this verbal confusion, if there's one clear action that is worth 10,000 words, he said. That is actually, I shown it to one of my friends who is the managing director of a big company. You'll put in a frame and display it in the board meeting room, because he has got some directors who go on talking endlessly. It's difficult to stop them from talking. So there is no time for you. This kind of a quote from Krishnaji will be very valuable for anybody.
That's a good one, yes. Yes. Should I share, Vishwanath, the one that I thought was really good, because for people who are in the working world or in the management world, I think perhaps it may be the most difficult. Just, you may remember this one, thought, how it works. So that's the quote actually. Thought is important in its right place, but it has no importance whatsoever psychologically. Thought is the reaction of memory. It is born from memory. Memory is experience as knowledge stored up in the brain cells. You can watch your own brain. You don't have to become a specialist. The brain cells hold memory. It is a material process. So this is something you brought into the book, which is very interesting.
So what I learned from Krishnaji, I can say, is that thought is an important instrument. That is the only instrument you have got to live your life. How it works, he explained that thought is the response of memory. When somebody asks a question, where did you study your schooling, primary school? You will go and recollect your school name. That is there in your memory. So it is the response of the memory. Who was teaching you mathematics in your class 4? You may take time to reply, but you will get the name. But you can ask anybody also. But there are also questions which you can't even answer. When you don't know any answer, that is a state of not knowing. And also he talked of thought is a material process. Material process means in a chemical industry, there's a material process industries. There's input, output, the processing takes place. Memory is there. You put a question, that is input, and the memory is processing that, and then output comes. Thought, experience, they are all together only. In thought is like computer disk, hard disk. What you got in the hard disk, whatever knowledge you have stored on the hard disk is considered as the memory. That is there.
Another quote from that friend on the bench. I think one should be able to look at the world, not only nature, the tree, the birds, the flowers, and the beauty of life outside, but also look into oneself clearly. Because there is all the history of mankind, the struggles, ambitions, drives, temptations, arrogance, violence, stupidity, everything is there. So shouldn't you be concerned with all this? Not just fragments of life. If one is so concerned, out of that comes intelligence. And out of intelligence, one acts. A little of that we should have, because it's a very beautiful quote, as we know, because
there's a clear distinction between intelligence and intellect. Today, intelligence is mistaken. First in the class, they are intelligent. In fact, that has gone to such an extent. Today, artificial intelligence is considered as intelligence. So there's a big danger. Today's world is so conditioned, they just keep using words without understanding what they're talking.
Shall we now? We can open it up to our guests, friends, I think, just to ask anything. I think basically just do go ahead. This
No,
is-
I want to be criticized. I want to be criticized for doing this work. No problem. I'm
Yes.
very prepared for that.
Vishwanath, if I may add something what you said about intelligence, I read once and heard from one great thinker that ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence.
Correct. All this comes in only when you have all these kind of things. When you're free of all the, you understand how the thought work, thought is limitations of thought, then intelligence works. You don't use your judgment and evaluations in what you see. Correct, Guru. Correct, Bhai. In fact, today AI is also part of knowledge. It's not about self-knowing. Self-knowing, how you are feeling now, what you are doing, how you are feeling, how you are reacting now. You only know. Nobody knows. That is not part of artificial intelligence. It is supreme intelligence. Krishnaji called it supreme intelligence. It is not artificial intelligence of a computer.
Vishwanath, I can see now Adin from Bangalore. Adin wants to say something, ask something. Adin, please go ahead, Adin.
Your book is about the enlightened manager, but I want to talk about the enlightened employee in a, in a multinational company. So someone who has read Krishnamurti, absorbed this philosophy and has to still be in a company which is, not geared to that philosophy. How can those two things match?
If you are enlightened, you won't be an employee for that matter. You leave the job. Krishnaji said, what he said, if you will shake anybody, sir, going to office from 9 to 5 every day for 40 years of life imprisonment, he said. Oh my God. Somebody asked him, sir, what do you want us to do? We have to earn our livelihood. Yes, if you earn livelihood, if you have no other choice, you earn livelihood, but don't complain. Other you try to change the environment to suit you. They're one of the only two options. But you should know what job suits you, what you love doing. You should do that. That's important for me.
Please,
Yep.
please go ahead, Rahul. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kamalji. So I've read the first couple of chapters of the book, really liked it. But based on my experience over here, so I teach at the university, but I also do a lot of non-profit leadership as well over here. So I'm running two big groups of social gatherings, around 150 members, and I've realized a few things over here. So the first thing that I realized is the knowledge paradox. We don't need more knowledge. We don't need more books. That's the first thing. So I'll be a bit critical over here because Vishwanath said that he's fine to accept criticism.
Yeah, definitely.
So I suppose like people have this general tendency to feel good in the moment, so they want to read and read and read and provide self-help for themselves. Well, I know that knowledge and understanding has a place, so books do have a place. But to create great leaders, I would stick to what Krishnamurti suggested. That is, you have to stand completely alone. And to do that, you will have to go beyond reading. You will have to take action. You will have to face the fear of yourself. So, what my argument is, are we able to move away from knowledge, the knowledge paradox? Can we now shift our attention from the book to another framework society move forward? And I've noticed that Krishnamurti's knowledge has helped me a lot, but it was its own limitation for me as well. Because I became a very spiritual, stagnant person after reading and reading and reading and gaining more and more knowledge. What I lacked was taking direct action and the fear of facing myself. But when I started doing that, all on my own, that's the catch because nobody could help me. That is when change happened. How can we create better frameworks in society that actually lead to change in society, which Krishnamurti's vision was?
Sir, actually, what you said about knowledge as its place, we are not
Yeah.
denying the knowledge as a place,
Oh.
provided you understand life in the functional field and the psychological field. There are
Yes.
two, man lives in two realms. One is outer and the inner. Inner, what is going on inside you. We only talk about inner thing. Inner dimension is what ultimately overtakes the outer. So knowledge, you need to have knowledge for what you are doing in your life. If you are a professor of a particular subject, you must have more knowledge about that. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
If I'm a chartered finance man, I will read finance books. I definitely have to understand that. There's no question about that.
Yes.
But that is only outer. When you talk about inner, you need to you use the word framework. I also use the word framework. Framework, again, we should not mistake it as a frozen thing. It is a living process. Life is a living process. In the process, outer and inner. There are always outer and inner. You must have clarity in that. That once you have that, I think then whatever you are saying will all hold good. Will
Yes,
come.
I understand. I understand. But when I let me tell you a few things. So I run a group which is inspired by Krishnamurti itself. So I've named it as the human potential. So I provide a safe space for people to come and talk. It's a social inquiry movement that I've made because I understood that life is not just about your own solutions that you're thinking, but a collective approach should be there, questioning together, solving problems together. So when I did that, I understood the main problem that we have is that we want to know more because it helps us to be comfortable. Because change, actual change requires you to be uncomfortable. It demands you to actually come across your own fears and negativity that you are running after by reading, and reading more, watching more videos, listening to other people. So again, I raise the same question to you because it still has not been answered yet. That is, I do acknowledge the fact that you are mentioning that knowledge has its place and books have its place. I do acknowledge that. But if I were to ask, what was your goal? Was it just to publish the book, or was it to actually change society?
No, sir, let me tell you one thing, sir. Changing the society is not in my hand. I should not do
Yes.
that. I should not claim that. It is not done
Yes.
for that purpose. I will
Yes.
do whatever I can and leave it there. It's up to the people to think, take it, whatever it is. The book is written to raise questions about life, to understand. Because
Okay.
the question is important more than the answer. Question, understand the question, whether the problem lies in the, always solution lies in the question or not, you examine it. So we are not talking of changing society. In fact, there is a line in the management schools in the world to make the world a better place. This standard line they use. What they can make better place? Unless the management graduates who are coming out of the management schools, whether it is any name you call it, they are not really doing good for the society. But they claim we are making the world a better place. I have not done that. But I copied a line from Krishnaji. Krishnaji never said he changed the world. Krishnaji only said, my only concern is to change, to set man free totally and unconditionally. His concern, he said. You can't question the concern. I'm not claiming anything.
I understand what you mean now, and you've provided the objective as well to just make clarity to the world about what leadership is from an enlightened perspective. But I do see the overall issue that arises from that as well. Every single person must act to bring about change.
No, sir, I will not speculatively say I want to change the world. Who am I to change the world? Why should I? If I can change myself, whether it can cause some effect on others nearby and near me is good enough for me.
Vishwanath, we have actually Saurajit. Saurajit has raised his hand for some time. Saurajit, go ahead, Saurajit.
I have a very managerial question to Vishwanath sir. I haven't read the book yet. You have mentioned about the work-life balance. So we are coining the term work-life. So we are, in a way, we are dividing the work and the life sector, or say the private life of ours. We are seeing it separately. As I think there shouldn't be any division. There is no division because the life is as a whole. A CEO of an IT company, of a big IT organization, he said, employees should be working 70 hours a week. So if an employee is working 70 hours a week, his private life is compromised. How come the person who is good at work is equally good in private life if his private life is compromised or his family life is compromised?
70 hours a week is absurd, meaningless thing, this statement. 70 hours a week for 40 years of life, imprisonment life, is life of imprisonment. I will not do that.
If a person is, is very much dependent on salary, and he doesn't, he hasn't stepped out of this corporate life, and he wants to stay in this corporate life because it's a safe way of earning money.
So either you adjust to the realities of life, or you understand what you need to earn in your life. You have to understand what is that you are earning life money for. If you understand your relationship with money is important there, and relationship with job also comes into picture. If this is the no way, this is the only thing I can do, then I will compromise and work on that. I'll accept it. But I have no option but to do this work only. I'll have to accept it. Otherwise, I have to go for other job if I got options. See, why I did my own entrepreneurship, I must tell you. I didn't want to work under stupid bosses. Bosses are stupid. Basically, they take stupid bosses. Why should I work? I can do my own thing. It may take time, but okay, let me take it. So let it take its own time, and I will do my own things. So there is no complaint.
Okay.
Thank you, Saurajit. Thank you, Saurajit.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gopal, why don't you go ahead and add something?
Yeah, No, it was more in connection with points that Adin and Rahul had raised, and also in Rahul's the way you framed it, Rahul, in terms of this book that's been written and how to apply it and what action will follow, what change it will create in society. I can speak a little bit about my relationship to the book. Um, Perhaps I'm biased somewhat because Vishwanath is a friend, but when I read it, my reading of it was not so that I would gain a set of principles that need to be applied, but what Vishwanath said in terms of raising questions. So for me, any book for that matter, the relationship to me seems to be one that is a reflective resource. So
Very
if a
good.
book such as this is a reflective resource, what does it give for us in terms of pause, asking a question of our own daily lives, and an action that might follow from that? In institutional frameworks, sometimes one finds oneself in, we call it, sometimes people say it's just functional authority, but often it becomes positional authority. But in life, sometimes it seems unclear to me who is the manager in relationships, who is the manager and who is the employee. Even a relationship with a child, it's not clear who is actually leading. And I take the word, when I say leading, I'm going to the root of the word. One understanding is not so much there's a leader and follower, but it comes from leith, Leith, which is stepping across a threshold from the known, the familiar, the settled, into something that's uncertain. This in daily life, outside of institutional settings, I'm not clear whether anybody has a specific function. You can take the lead on something, Rahul or Vishwanath or Adin, in any given situation. And sometimes I might take the lead, say, okay, let's go this way. Outside of an institutional setting, it seems that leadership is a very dynamic and unclear process to me. But in an institutional setting, there is a manager, there is an employee. How does one navigate this whole dance, I will even call it, of leadership and so on?
Management is circus, actually, if you ask me. Management is not a straightforward job. Management is management of contradictions. And in business world, customer is always right. Whether it is logical or the logical or illogical, customer is always right. If you think customer is wrong, either in the wrong business or in the wrong customer. It's for you to choose. Unless you are aware of these fundamental realities, you are not part, you are playing a game in that. Why do you choose to be part of that game then?
These are all labels. As a linguist, I see these are all labels, frankly. Whether manager or employee, or as an employee, do I want to reduce myself to be an employee? Or I very naturally feel part of the place, part of the activity, and in a way co-creating the environment, the atmosphere there, or working together with others. In any situation, you have to work together with others. Even as a freelance, you had to do projects, you work together with others, you build up teams. You are human being first. So as a human being to human being, there's a free field. And that's why this friend on the benches comes so natural. These lines that we draw between oneself and the collective, these are lines we are drawing. Actually, they don't exist. Face it. Face yourself. That's where the music is. That's where life is. That's where learning happens.
Thank you, Chauraji. Thank you. Somebody else?
Can I add something?
Oh, yeah, Madhu. Please go ahead, Madhu. Go ahead, Madhu.
It's really an honor to meet Vishwanath sir, and I'm meeting him for the first time. Although I haven't read the book yet, but the discussion has already made me eager to read the book. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Madhu.
Madhusruti. Thank you, Madhusruti.
But I
Good.
just wanted to say, Vishwanath, that we wanted this to be a very interactive program and not a perfect program. But we wanted to be a place, where things are getting exchanged. And very often, I think the reflection happens later. This book is now basically very much available on Amazon, so you can find out for yourself. It's an experiment. I think it's a real experiment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today.